Hey class, how's it going? My name's Landon Graham, and I just wanted to talk to you guys for a brief minute here about strategic health information technology. And I have a lot of passion for this topic because it's kind of very involved in what I do on a daily basis. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. Uh, Kind of an introduction here to the conversation I want to have. And one thing I've noticed throughout all of our readings, and especially just throughout the MBA program in general, this is one of my last classes, is there is something to be said for the power of not just being innovative and being involved in innovative technologies for information systems and how you run your business, but they have to be aligned with strategy and making sure that you're getting to the granularity of how that in fact impacts your operations, because if you don't, you're not ever going to see that potential return on investment of really investing finance and money into those type of technologies. So I'm going to go ahead with a really real life example from my job and a project that I did very recently, and kind of overview of that and how it played out. Project Scope. So what we were trying to do is align extra clinic space for heart failure patients, and we basically have extra capacity coming on with two new heart failure physicians starting in the greater Seattle area next month. So my job was to figure out where are we going to place those physicians to better serve the population of cardiac patients in the greater Seattle area, and then on top of that, how can we optimize that revenue stream and volume, so not just better for business, but what's also better for the community. So quickly running through what we did. First thing we did is we wanted to understand where our patients were coming from. So we have a system called Epic, which stores all of our patients' information, including demographic information. So by the time I get it, it's completely de-identified. But what I was able to do is take all of our heart failure volume by zip code and by county and divide it up here. And you can see where all of our unique patients come from in the map. And then we have total visits. So King County, for example, 276 unique patients, 1,500 total visits. So really just getting an idea of what our population base and the community we serve right now is. So the scope is defining those opportunistic services. Here we had one of our physicians, he's our medical director for heart failure, come through, and we identified 5 areas where we already have open and available clinic space, and we divided up by zip code, and then we wanted to look at, okay, where are those heart failure patients going to be that we need to serve and that we need to get access to so that we can have revenue based on that. So here on the same type size map scale here, you can see where our 5 opportunistic clinics are that we potential, service areas where we might want to see some patients. So then I kind of went into a market snap, Truven and Nielsen projections for population. We can put together a heat map here, and you can see the population projections, and that's going to come into play here in a second when we get into volumes. So here we have population versus volume projections for the 5 identified opportunistic service areas, and we wanted to look at cardiology volumes because those are usually directly correlated to heart failure patients, but not always. So that's kind of one limitation we're going to talk here at the end about why it's important to align your strategy with what you're doing with your information systems, because if you're not comparing apples to apples, it makes a huge difference, and we'll get there in a minute. So next, I went to a different source, and this is an incidence projection from the American Heart Association. This is tied directly to the population of 65 and older. And so you can see here, just from the figures, kind of trying to be brief here because the main point is strategic alignment. But you can see the areas where we're identifying the greatest area for growth is Sequim, Renton, and Bellevue. Okay, and so other part here, strategic alignment, is look at all our competitors. So going on to the next slide after I show you this is you can see where all our competitors are, especially in the Bellevue area. So our key findings, and this is based on my pure analytical point of view. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a clinician, I don't know all those relationships, but I would have said Renton, Bellevue based on population and potential cardiovascular volume all day long. Well, Sequim is actually probably the larger, opportunistic volume because of the 65 and up population. And so that's where I said it really comes into making sure you're aligned with what your strategy is, because we're going for heart failure. So there's a lot of cardiovascular volume in 65 and under, but not a lot of heart failure within that cardiology volume. So really just making sure that you're comparing apples to apples and really getting at what you want. And then kind of part of really making sure we're aligned with the strategy. And this is where we had to communicate with the doctors. And this is where I think healthcare is a little bit different, is, we're dealing with people's lives. And this is where it becomes really interesting to me. So, like I said before, our advisory board and heart failure for American Heart Association were not apples to apples, because advisory board was cardiology volumes. So there's a barrier there. I just want to make sure that you're aligned with that. And then secondly, the proximity of heart failure clinics to cardiology volume is something that was made to be much bigger of a deal in the long run than we thought it was going to be when we were running the analytics. The physician said, if there's not an affiliated cardiology center, we won't get the volume. It'll go to our competitors. And so that was something that we didn't really know up front, but it's really going to impact our decision, because the first place that we're sending these new physicians is out to SQUIM, where, population wasn't quite indicative of where we would want to be for cardiology volumes, but heart failure specifically, 65 and up, we already have 3 cardiologists that are in SQUIM. So it really just comes down to that conversation. Making sure that you communicate clearly, making sure that everyone on the team that's designing something, its goals are aligned. Just wanted to pose a couple questions here, the last bit. So in what other ways do you see the use of health information technology organizational strategy in healthcare? How can you align that better? What are the challenges with aligning business information systems and strategy in your industry? I'd love to hear about your perspective. And then, do you think physicians' reimbursement, payment for services should be impacted by their effective, meaningful use? Because, I can do the analytics. They know the strategy of where we need to be for patients. But are we to the point yet where you think that they can be paid based on how they're using that information? I think that's a really interesting topic. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you guys. Next slide is just references, and thanks for your time. Have a great night. Bye.